How's the market evolving? How do we need to adapt our organization and in fact shape the market going forwards? In consumer, how do we provide a better customer experience and products which are more affordable and more relevant as the market evolves? And if you look across fixed, the green graph, 3G, the blue graph, LTE, the red graph, what we're seeing is continued growth in demand. It's not waning. If we put these graphs up 3 years ago, people might have said, it's off a low base. We expect it to wane. But it just continues, it is powering forward the demand for broadband. And we predict, following this trend forwards, that overall, across all technologies, broadband data consumption is expected to grow 5 times by about 2020. Part of the challenge is that's not going to be accompanied by 5 times revenue growth, of course. So as a first challenge, you could say, we have to find a way to deliver 5 times an infrastructure which will satisfy 5 times broadband growth, even before we get to more universal adoption of broadband. I think one interesting thing that's driving that growth is how people are accessing the internet. And I don't think it's a surprise or news to you folk in the room that is heavily driven by mobile devices, phones, smartphones, and tablets. And particularly with regard to tablets, you see in the last year, there's been a 33% growth in tablet access to the internet. Now, this is, again, both an opportunity and a challenge. Are these devices universally available in South Africa? If they could be, it would transform broadband access in the country. But if we look behind this, it starts pointing to a slightly different challenge. Now, this graph, I realize, is a bit small for you to see. But the top one is the estimated average number of devices per household. The red bar is in 2013, the blue bar is forecasted in 2020. And you'll see that the affluent homes, the bars on the right of the chart, there's not that much growth, but there's a lot of devices per home, between 10 and 12. So if you take tablets, all the phones, smart TVs, computers, laptops, 10 to 12 devices per home on average. Whereas the poorer households, two at the moment, and those are normally feature phones, not smartphones. But what's interesting is when you look at the expected data consumption. So remember, data consumption overall is going to grow 5 times. But where's it going to grow? And the graph on the bottom shows the average data consumption per home. And what you see there is even the poorer homes, with the exception of the very poorest of the homes, the 3,200 to 6,400 Rand a month home, it's anticipated that by 2020, even they will be using 10 gigs of data per month. More middle-class homes and affluent homes are 30, 40, 50 gigs of data per month. How are we seeing our response in the consumer side? How is this new, bold, decisive thinking manifesting in our consumer business? I think it's mainly coming through with a new focus on fiber. Well, there's 2 real focus areas in the consumer business. Number one is really get that customer experience right. We know it's a long journey. We're making progress, but get the customer experience right. But the other thing is a huge new focus on fiber. Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, our broad strategy was primarily VDSL, ADSL, and derivatives. And fiber was a sort of a niche high-end product. And even a year ago, it was mainly about piloting fiber and in what we called a spotty dog deployment. That has changed dramatically, where fiber is now at the heart of our consumer strategy. And we've set ourselves very aggressive ambitions that within 2.5 years, by March 2018, to be able to connect 1 million homes. In a South African context, given the industry's capacity, that is a very aggressive challenge that we're setting ourselves. We want to do this by offering very competitive tariffs, by offering the appropriately tiered products, by having good bundles, by having the right content bolt-ons and strategy with partners in the market, potentially some things ourselves. So fiber is a really important part of our equation on the consumer side. And when that plays out, there's never an end state, but if we look sort of 5 years forward, we see that we'll be at probably about 1/3 of our customers will be on fiber to the home. About 1/3 of our customers will be on a fixed wireless LTE advanced offer, and about only a third of our customers will still be on XDSL. And you'll notice in this also that we see that only about 15%, 1/6 of our customers, would actually be on a speed less than 10 megabits per second. So we see this as a dramatic transformation of how we deliver broadband into the South African consumer market.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brian Armstrong. Brian, that's a fantastic presentation and really encouraging. We've got a small gift for you before you leave the stage. But before you hand the gift over, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Controversial question. I mean, it's been in the news, and you don't have to answer at all. But is Telkom considering buying Cell C?
What's
No, I mean, it's a valid question. Have there been talks? I mean, it's in the news.
What's in the public domain is there's been discussions.
Yeah.
If there's a good deal to be done, there's a good deal to be done. If there's not, there isn't.
So is it at the stage where SAB and Anheuser-Busch was about 3 weeks ago?
I'm not going to go further
and
down
then there's
this
a
path.
new offer on the table. But I mean, there have been talks, is the point. I mean,
There have been talks with lots of people. You
Yes.
know, we talk to our industry partners all the time.
Yeah.
But it is public. It's in the public domain that, of course, Cell C have spoken about what they would want to see from Telkom if we were to take the discussions forwards. We've said what we want to see if we wanted to take the discussions forward. CEPA was on record saying if the price is right, we're interested.
Okay, interesting stuff. And how's the BCX deal going?
I think just to put in perspective, we've invested something like 23 billion over the last 3 years, 8.7 billion last year. We'll be investing a similar amount again this year, but it's led to a fundamental change in what I call preparing for the data revolution or evolution, if you like. And we've seen a lot of successes coming from that. You would have seen in the first quarter data traffic having grown 45%, but more important, data revenue now 35% of our revenues coming from data and growing at 35%.
35%?
Yeah.
Now, Shameel, has that surprised you? Has this incredible data explosion surprised you? Because it's like, I look at the numbers every single year when you announce your results, and it's astonishing the increase year on year.
It's been extremely successful, and I think, look, it hasn't really surprised us because we knew when we look at what's happening in Europe, we can see, and in the States and so on, we're still under-indexing in terms of average usage per customer. So today, you know, the average customer is using about 440 megs, okay, with some devices as much as 1.5 gigs, 2 gigs. But you know, in the US and in Europe, you're already starting to see those numbers. And if we look at our profile of stuff, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think one of the areas that we'll see more growth in is on the whole video on demand side. So that's still a part that I think will continue to grow. And I think, you know, if we just take a step back and we look at the fact that our fixed penetration in the country by world standards is very low. Okay, so you need to basically, we have an over dependency on mobile. So for mobile to be able to grow, and there's a close linkage between access to broadband and GDP growth.
Yes.
So if you want the GDP growth to happen, you have to provide the underlying infrastructure, which is power with Eskom, it's telecommunications, it's a number of different factors that actually contribute to the growth in the economy. And I think where we're missing the plot a bit is that we've still not sorted out the digital migration. And the digital migration has to happen. It should have happened by June 2015. It hasn't happened. The country is now severely held back, and we need to be able to provide that. What we've done is we've basically refarmed spectrum, squeezed more into the part, but there's only so much you can do with basically squeezing, let's say, more customers, more utilization into the spectrum that you have.
Yes.
We need the 800 spectrum, 700, 800, and we need the 2.6. The 700, 800 will give us better indoor coverage and give us a much better penetration of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, this data explosion is going to have to be addressed in two ways. One is through fiber to the home, fiber to the business, and secondly, through mobile networks that can basically handle the capacity, the volumes, and so on. In South Africa, I think, you know, we have 14 million households. I think 3 to 4 million is probably the size of your fixed part or your fiber to the home, fiber to the business. The other 10 million will have to be addressed with mobile. Now we've prepared the networks for it. I mean, the networks will continue to evolve. We go into LTE Advanced, we go into 5G and so on. But you have to, the spectrum is it's the heart of everything that we do.
Yeah,
so without spectrum, you're kind of constrained.
Neotel responsible for those grey hairs. What on earth is happening with this Neotel deal?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you another thing, because we had the acting CEO of Neotel and he said, no, the deal is not about spectrum for Vodacom, but clearly it is about spectrum. Come on.
No, look, I think the, so firstly, yes, it's provided a lot of grey hairs, and it's taken a lot longer. And I think there's a lot to be said in the speed of how we get these things through. Because, as a country, we're not very fast in getting, making all these things happen quickly and so on. So I think there's definitely an issue there. I think the second part is the Neotel thing and why Neotel was important for us. What we looked at is we said, look, we're a mobile company by and large. And yes, we've built a fixed business. And yes, our fixed business is growing quite nicely. It's growing by almost 30% a year. So, good business for us. But fundamentally, we're still a small player in this market. And what Neotel does for us, it gives us a couple of benefits. I think the first thing that Neotel does, it gives us capability. It gives us the capability to go and play in a meaningful way in the fiber to the home, fiber to the business part, and in the entire fixed space in a more meaningful way, because they've built the expertise, they've got more access network than we have. We've obviously been covering base stations and connecting base stations. So the one side is they have capability, and what we'd like to do, I think the Neotel team have done a superb job, but I think they've done it by being constrained with CapEx. Telecoms is about capital investment. We have the ability to take this business, capitalize it properly, and make a meaningful difference in the country. And I think we must always remember that Neotel was set up as a second network operator to create competition. Now, it's funny when, we're stepping up to say, and by the way, there wasn't really anyone else who was even a contender in terms of pricing and so on. And because we saw the benefits that it could bring for us. So that was the one part. The second part is that it has fiber. And if we put their fiber on top of our fiber, it brings us closer to the housing estates, the office parks, businesses and so on. So immediately it gives us the ability to connect more businesses and homes and so on. The third thing is it's got a customer base. It's got a nice customer base. It's got some important customers in there, which we think we can, if we put our products in, we can do it. Now, I think what we've managed to do is we've built what I call the toys.
Yes.
So we've got big data centers. We have more than 1.2 billion investment just in data centers. Just in customer data centers. Let's not even talk about the rest of the networks. If you take the rest of the networks, you're running into 15, 20 billion in network investment in data centers. So we have the capacity and we can use that to help customers. So, if we take our products and services that we've created, put it on top of Neotel's network.
It's complementary.
It's immediately complementary, and there's a lot that we can do. So, I reckon we can connect at least 1 million households in the next couple of years if and when we can acquire or complete the deal with Neotel.
So Shameel, it's quite interesting to see globally where video on demand services are going. We've seen the success of Netflix and Apple TV around the world, and we've had Naspers launching their own version over here. MTN's got a video on demand service. Is that something that Vodacom is looking at as well?
Very much so. So we will launch our own video on demand service, but I think we will also partner with the existing providers in a number of respects. Firstly, allowing their services to be charged to bill. Secondly, by allowing for creating some kind of in-app data usage, but also creating certainty on the price. As an example, if you're paying 25 Rand for a movie without data, maybe you're paying 30 Rand or 35 Rand, including the data. So those type of things to encourage more utilization on it. And I think one of the areas where I think we're under-indexing in terms of data volumes is video on demand, and TV and video services as such, or streaming services. I think as the years go on, that's a part that I think will significantly grow going forward. And I think there'll be a number of opportunities that will be created in the video space, in the streaming space, both for music, video, and so on, but also in the content space.
Are you talking to Netflix?
We're talking to everyone.
Okay, well, it's
look, basically, I think the reality is that we will launch products with everybody who decides to come to market. So we'll have our own service, but we'll also partner, because we don't think it's a situation where we have to have full control over it. I think we're happy to partner. You know, we're happy to partner with MultiChoice. We're happy to partner with the existing TV channels, SABC, ETV. We're happy to partner with everybody because I think there's just so much demand that we're going to have to bring it. But hopefully, I mean, what we want to do, I think the differentiator on video on demand services is going to be the quality of the content. And the quality of the connection, if you like. And I think we can play a role in both of that spaces. So, I mean, if you're looking at what they're saying in Europe, they're saying that by 2020, the average person will have 8 connected devices. If you divide that by 2, and you say ours will be at least 4, okay, that means we'll have over 200 million connected devices by 2020. So you can see the potential of what's possible. The networks have to be able to cope with that. I mean, you know, I think we'll continue to innovate, make the investments and so on to be able to cope with that. And I think that's why putting down fiber, you know, to the base stations and so on become important. But also there will be an evolution of how that changes. Networks will evolve to more elements of the network sitting in the cloud, as an example. So that evolution will also happen. But then also in terms of different products and services, both for our consumer customers and our enterprise customers. And so I think you see a world changing completely. From a business perspective, you know, you'll be able to access more and more apps, not just apps, but software and programs that all sits in the cloud, that gets hosted in the cloud. I think, you know, so you get your Oracle, your Siebel, special engineering software. So whatever segment you're in, more and more, less of it will be sitting at the server level or at the PC, and more of it will be sitting in the cloud. So you have to have strong connections, and that's where fiber plays a big role. Hence Neotel, which effectively can provide that capacity to businesses at a minimum to be able to change their businesses and access more of these things that will be in the cloud. So I think cloud becomes a much bigger part of our world going forward, both in investment, but also in terms of what all will be in the cloud.
Will we see 5G next year from Vodacom?
It hasn't been invented yet, but you'll see it as soon as it is.
Shameel Joosub, ladies and gentlemen, one of the real characters in the industry. Thank you so much, Shameel. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much for your frankness. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we got a little gift.